Chapter 9. She turned 22 that night. That was how this relationship began. A relationship that shook me to my core. Every intimate moment with her felt like a transformation. In the twilight of my life, spring had finally arrived. I had opened my arms wide and embraced it. I was not going to let it slip away. Katerina changed everything for me. She gave me hope, made me feel young again, confident, desirable.
Eris could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Come on, you're pulling my leg," he said. "The kid is actually in love with you? Are you sure?" One evening, the three of us went out together. Eris was impressed by her sense of humor, her sharp mind, the sparkle in her eyes, the way she spoke, and, of course, her body. "My friend, you've hit the jackpot," he told me when we were alone. "Now, let's see where this story takes you." "We'll see," I replied sarcastically.
I felt eager to work, eager to live every moment of my life, eager to dream about the days ahead with her. We went on trips, went out almost every day, and I had begun to grow a little tired. Of course, I never showed it. I didn't want to lose her. A chance had finally come my way as well. I was in contact with my daughter almost every day, sometimes by phone, sometimes through video call. I always saw her happy, telling me about her day, her friendships, her flirtations, and the way she was growing and changing. "You seem really happy, Dad," she told me a few months after I met Katerina. "I'm doing fine, sweetheart. What's going on that you're not telling your little girl?" Diana insisted. She handled my separation from her mother with a remarkable composure, as if she had expected it. She never spoke to me about Marina, nor did she ask any questions. Mother and daughter kept in touch by phone. My daughter even consulted her on medical matters. I won't hide it. I liked that. But I wasn't being honest with Diana. From the very beginning, I was afraid to tell her about my relationship with Katerina. What was I supposed to say? "My child, your father has become involved with a girl your own age." How would she take it? I dreaded her questions. The very thought of it unsettled me. The truth? How could I possibly reveal it to Diana? Perhaps I could tell her about Katerina and hide her age, but that would be wrong too. Later, after talking with my daughter, I came to realize that her mother and I had never officially divorced, still left her with hopes of a possible reconciliation. No child, regardless of age, ever truly accepts the separation of their parents. The same was true of my own child. She was a woman now, and she knew that my relationship with her mother was no longer working, yet she still held on to her hopes. So I let Diana hear me sounding happy, which I truly was, and wonder what it was that had brought such a pleasant change into my life. My sweet Katerina already knew everything about me, about my entire life, at least up to the point where we had met. She knew everything I had gone through during my childhood and teenage years. I had also told her about the relationships I had had with various women over the years. She knew about Daphne, and of course about Marina. She never commented. She simply listened. One evening, we were having dinner at the house in Marusi. She had prepared a wonderful meal, and afterward we ended up embracing each other on the couch. We weren't talking, we were simply enjoying each other's presence. Suddenly, I heard her say, "So, are you finally going to show me those albums you told me about? I want to see the faces that were part of your life instead of just imagining them." I had told her that one day I would show her photographs. That day had come. I brought the albums and left them beside her so she could browse through them at her leisure. I sat next to her to guide her and introduce her to my people, the familiar faces of my life. Later, I stood up and remained standing by the fireplace, which that evening filled our wonderful companionship with its warmth. I left her alone, to look, to think, to comment. She was leafing through the pages of my life, and yet I felt no sadness at all. I felt nothing else. I was observing everything, as if I were a third party. Incredible, and yet true. I was deeply in love. My love for Katerina had taken the form of a gift I had given myself, and I had no intention of depriving myself of it. A selfish kind of love. I think I had never felt more attached to a woman than I did during the time I was with Katerina. Besides, I had always been dependent on a woman. It was true, but I liked it. As the days passed, I grew more and more attached to Katerina. I suggested that she come and live with me in Marusi. She said, "No, I think things are better this way." Perhaps she was right. Carried away by this relationship, I had withdrawn from friends and acquaintances, even from Aris, which was strange, because throughout everything that had happened in my life, he had always been by my side as an advisor and observer. This time, however, I felt that he did not share in my happiness. On the contrary, it seemed to me that he was fighting it with his relentless criticism, and that frightened me. "I approve of the relationship, but not of the age difference," he would tell me. "I don't care what you approve of and what you don't," I would reply. "At some point, I deserve to live my life too." "Yes, but in the right way, not in the unconventional way you've chosen. When she leaves you, call me so I can comfort you," he would say with a laugh. He was convinced that sooner or later Katerina would walk away from what he considered a crazy relationship. But things did not turn out exactly that way. Terra incognita is the human soul. I had reached a point where not only did I not feel the slightest remorse, but on the contrary, I had begun to like this new version of myself very much. I won't deny that in some situations I played the role of a father figure a little, but Katerina seemed particularly attracted to that side of me. That role would disappear by magic whenever we made love. In my face she had seen many things, as she told me. She had seen a partner, a father, a friend, a lover. Each of those feelings had its own explanation. She had confessed her trust in me. Many times I felt the need to justify myself, or even to justify Katerina. I would talk to Eris. He was adamant, but he was and still is my friend, my brother. "This relationship is going to destroy you," he told me one day. "Then let it be so. I'll live it to the very end." Almost a year had passed since I met Katerina. Every day we saw each other, even if only for a little while. Our free hours were filled with love, passion, and tenderness. On the morning of June 18th, 2004, a date I will never forget, I woke up overwhelmed with joy. It was Katerina's birthday. She had told me that she expected me at her house that evening so we could celebrate together there. I told her I would rather go somewhere out. She agreed. She always agreed. "I'll come pick you up around 10, I said. Before heading to my office, I stopped at a jewelry store in the city center and chose a beautiful pearl necklace. I anxiously waited for the hours to pass so I could see it resting on her beautiful, slender neck. I wanted to see joy painted across her face, to taste her kisses. I spent the entire day waiting for the night to come. The blue velvet box containing the pearls I had bought her filled me with incredible satisfaction. At around 9:30, I started driving down Kifisias Avenue toward Kolonaki. I arrived at her house carrying my gift. I was also holding a red rose. In my mind, I had already imagined a scene, and I was eager to live it. I rang the doorbell. I didn't have a key, nor had I ever asked her to give me one. The door opened, but the person standing behind it was not Katerina. It was the unexpected face of a woman I did not know and certainly had never expected to welcome me. For a moment, I was completely taken aback. "Mr. the beautiful woman who had opened the door asked me. "Pavlos Alexiou." Afraid of exposing Katerina, I quickly added, "Notary public. Mrs. Flora is expecting me." "And I am Flora," she replied sweetly. "Natalia Flora, her mother. Please come in." A strange instinct prompted me to hide the rose behind my back. As I entered the house, I tossed it into the garden. With obvious embarrassment, I walked into the living room. "Please sit down," she urged me. I behaved as though it were my first time in that house. I paid close attention to my movements and my words. I was afraid I might do something that would reveal my relationship with her daughter. "Katerina is late. Who knows why? I'm waiting for her too. I've only been here for a short while myself. Of course, she wasn't expecting me either," she added. "We had arranged a professional appointment, and I assumed she would be here," I said, trying to conceal the uneasiness I felt. "You assumed correctly, Mr. Alexiou, but I'm afraid we may both have to wait for her. I didn't want to call her about my visit because I wanted it to be a surprise." Natalia Flora was a very beautiful woman. One of those women whom, when you see them on the street, in a restaurant, or anywhere else, you find yourself turning back for a second look. My anxiety was beginning to fade, and little by little my composure returned. The first thing that crossed my mind was what Mrs. Flora would say if she saw a mature man at her door asking for her daughter. That was why I had emphasized the professional appointment story, the guilt of a man afraid being exposed. Katerina had told me that her mother knew absolutely nothing about our relationship, fortunately for all of us at that moment. On the other hand, I knew a great deal about her mother, and in considerable detail, I might add. I simply had never met her. "Would you like something to drink?" she asked politely. "Your eyes, and then I'll leave," I felt like answering, but instead I settled for a whiskey on the rocks. She served both of us. Then she sat directly opposite me on the couch, deliberately crossing her beautifully shaped legs in front of me. Natalia Flora was indeed a very attractive woman. "I haven't visited my daughter in quite some time, and now that I finally decided to come, Katerina isn't here. It's her birthday today, as you know, and I stopped by to leave her gift. Because of the occasion, I took the initiative, but—" "Give her my regards," I said rather foolishly, "and wish her 100 more happy birthdays." "What time is your appointment?" "At 10 o'clock here," I replied. "Then we'll wait for her together." She smiled at me with a wonderfully warm smile that reminded me of her daughter. She was about the same age as my former wife. In fact, we were probably around the same age. Perhaps she was 3 or 4 years younger, not more than that. "You said you're a notary public?" "Exactly." "Where is your office located?" "Benaki Street, corner of Benaki and Coletti, in the large building." "So you're right in the center of Athens, Mr. Alexiou." "That was my father's old notary office. I completely renovated it. For sentimental reasons, I never moved it elsewhere." "You're right," she said, then added, "I'm a doctor, an orthopedic surgeon." "Where do you work?" Although I already knew the answer, I asked the question as naturally as possible. "At KAT Hospital. I've been there for years." Things were beginning to get difficult for me. I didn't want her to ask any more questions. I was afraid I might let my guard down and say something I shouldn't. Several minutes of absolute awkwardness passed. Suddenly, the sound of a key turning in the door was heard. I breathed again. She had arrived. At last. Surprise and concern appeared simultaneously in Katerina's eyes when she found her mother and me sitting together in her living room. Natalia immediately jumped up and said, almost apologetically, "I wanted to surprise you, and while I was waiting for you, Mr. Alexiou arrived." "Good evening," Katerina said, with a formal smile as she quickly assessed the situation.
"I'm sorry I'm late for our appointment. A professional matter delayed me. I was worried. Were you going to leave? Were you going to wait? I tried to call and let you know I would be late, but your phone wasn't answering." At that exact moment, I realized that I had forgotten my mobile phone. "You're right. Unfortunately, I didn't bring it with me, absent-minded as usual." I understood immediately.
She was upset. She was tense and trying not to show it. Her mother, as I already knew, never arrived at her house unannounced. Mother and daughter had always arranged such visits beforehand. "Do you know, Mr. Alexiou, that today is Katerina's birthday?" She deliberately concealed the fact that I had already mentioned it to her. Why, I wondered. "Happy birthday," I said, turning toward Katerina and looking directly into her eyes. "Well, I'll leave you now. You two probably have things to discuss. Happy birthday, my love. Your gift is over there," she said, pointing to a small box resting on the corner of the table beside the couch. "Mr. Alexiou, it was a great pleasure meeting you." She offered me her hand. I sprang to my feet. "The pleasure was mine, madam." That handshake seemed to hide something. It was not a typical greeting, casual and impersonal. I felt her hand squeeze mine with intention. I was shaken. I had received the message. I showed nothing, but I liked it. I liked both, that fleeting touch and Natalia herself. I was hopeless. Katerina walked her mother to the door. Mother and daughter kissed goodbye. I felt guilty. I don't know why. I remained standing in the living room, waiting for her. "I'm sorry, my love," she apologized tenderly as she slipped an arm around me and gave me a passionate kiss. I received it as though it were a completely new experience. I pulled her tightly against me, returning her kiss with a guilty longing while whispering to her, "May you live, my love. May you always be happy." I took the box from my jacket pocket and handed it to her. She opened it. I watched her. She was speechless. She bit her lower lip and looked at me with her beautiful blue eyes. I saw 2 tears forming in them. Katerina was a sensitive soul. By then, I knew that very well. I took the pearls from her hands and fastened them around her neck. "For my swan," I whispered. We kissed again. "You are my love, my happiness," she kept repeating. That same evening, we celebrated her birthday in Kifisia, at the very restaurant where we had dined on the day we first met. She was radiant with beauty and youth. Her presence had filled my life. I admired her endlessly. I no longer cared when I noticed the stares of other customers fixed upon us. "They think you're out with your daughter," I told myself, trying to quiet my thoughts. Usually, when we went out together, I tried to remain completely discreet. I didn't want to attract attention. But that night was special for us. We drank 2 bottles of wine. We were almost drunk and unimaginably happy, and we knew it. The next day, I called Eris. I told him everything that had happened the night before. I also told him about Natalia. "Have you no shame? How can you do this? Don't you feel any remorse?" "Why should I feel remorse, you fool? Because I'm happy?" "Because, from what it seems, that girl loves you, you idiot. What are you going to do? Where is this story heading?" I don't know, and I truly didn't. With his words, Eris was playing the role of my conscience. But why was I supposed to feel guilty? Don't things like this happen? I kept wondering, while at the same time watching myself from a distance. Perhaps love was never meant to measure years. Perhaps it never cared about numbers at all. Love recognizes something far deeper. It seeks the invisible currents that flow between 2 souls, the energy, the presence, the silent language that exists beyond logic. And when those currents meet, when two spirits resonate with one another, age loses its power. Time becomes irrelevant. What remains is the intensity of feeling, a force that amplifies every emotion, turning ordinary moments into unforgettable memories and making life burn a little brighter than before. Maybe that is why some loves seem impossible to everyone else, yet feel inevitable to the two people living them. Love does not unite ages. It unites auras.